You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.
Welcome to Above the Garage, a Nick and June, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. Hi, friends. Welcome to our deep dive into Season 1, Episode 10 of The Handmaid's Tale, which is entitled Night. This segment is intended for longtime fans of the show, so if you're a new watcher, go and find our spoiler-free analysis, which we released on Monday. In this analysis, we'll talk about the episode in the context of the show to date, which is through Season 4. Let's do our round of introductions.
Hi, I'm Megan.
Hi, I'm Tina.
Hi, I'm Ginger.
Hi, I'm Scarlett.
And I'm Kate. So this episode is such a perfect way to end the season because it's the end of Margaret Atwood's book. And I was very excited. When the show first came out, I had read the book. I think I'd read it. I think I just read it recently. So I reread it and I was really excited and very excited to see where they went with Season 2. And one thing that struck me is, you want to know in the end of the episode, is Nick, is she going to be freed? Is he helping her escape or what? And then with Season 2, Episode 1, I remember being like really disappointed with what actually happened.
Yeah.
Because they had to be true to the book and what he said to her, which was, go with them, trust me. And then in Season 2, Episode 1, like it's kind of horrific, traumatic event that she goes to, the fake hanging at Fenway. And things get better from there. But I remember thinking, like, why wouldn't he just, like, he had time to whisper to her. Why didn't he whisper to her, like, they're going to fake hang you?
Yeah, it's okay. You'll be okay.
Yeah, but he couldn't because it was the book. They're just staying true to the book. Like, I totally understand it. But at the time, I was just like, oh, that's fucked up. He should have told her about that.
I mean, technically, though, once he got done whispering to her, they were already there. So, I mean, he didn't really
could have whispered it in the same amount of time.
I know. I'm just trying to, like, defend him.
It's not his fault. It's just because they're staying true to the book. So I have no problem with it. But in reality, had they not had a book to stay true to,
maybe he thought that then she would tell everybody and it wouldn't be realistic.
I don't know. They're all like,
I don't know.
Well, that's a good argument.
See, that's what I think, because I can't fathom that. I can't imagine that he would know that and just be like, oh,
trust me, it'll be great.
So, yeah.
Catch a ball game. I mean, they had to end it. They had to end it the way that she ended her book. There's no way around it. Like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't actually have a problem with like Nick or the showrunners. So my notes on this, I had that it's the end of the original book. So I was very excited to see what happens afterwards, and still am. And then how the letters eventually got out. So the letters are introduced to us in this episode. I guess the package is introduced to us in the last episode, but we find out that they're all these letters from handmaids. And I love the way that these letters eventually get out, which is through both June's boyfriend and her husband working together.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that first of all, when she's having her like mental breakdown, instead of getting rid of the letters, which probably most guardians, men, etc., would do, Nick takes care of them and keeps them safe. And then without any prompting from her, it seems he smuggles them out into Canada the first chance he gets.
Yeah, I'm always curious about that. I always wonder, my tinfoil hat on, like, did they end up in the right hands? They did. He did what was intended. So I don't know. Because I think that is what was intended.
Yeah.
Like
think
Ginger
that
kind of said.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that could happen with him.
Well, because look at the effect they had when they got out, right? Like it ended.
Right. It went boom.
It got them kicked out of Canada.
It got them kicked out of Canada. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it was important that they read these letters in Season 1, because honestly, when I was watching Season 2, like I forgot about what the letters said, because they just kept referencing the letters. But then when you go back and watch the finale and you have all these women's voices reading, like their names, they stole my children, they rape us, they treat us like animals. Like, I think that just kind of drives home how important those letters are, and how important they are that they got out, and Nick brought them, and Luke and Moira and Aaron, I think, got them out.
Yeah, they did. Yep. And I love that she, he gives the credit to Luke. He takes credit for like 1 second before he tells her, I met your husband and all. And then he's like, it was him. He did it all. He got him out. And I'm like, whoa.
Oh, goodness.
It is awesome that Luke got them to the press, but you risked your life to get them out of Canada.
Yeah, you really did the hard part.
The life risking.
Well, and it wasn't necessarily Luke who got them out at first. Like, him and Moira were upset. They're like, this is nothing. And then Erin's like, actually, she's like, because Moira wanted, she's like, I was hoping it was something like TNT. And she's like, well, this can go boom. And then they're like, oh, okay, now we know what to do with the letters.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Thank you, Erin. I wish you didn't disappear. But
come back.
Where did she go? Come back, Erin.
Season 5. We want Erin.
Yeah. Blessed be the Fruit Loops.
I love that first line. If you're gonna not speak for years, that's a good one. Also, I think in the notes, was it script notes, Tina? You would know. They're yours. You're the one who read them. Does it say that they read about? That she told him about the letters when they were at the Boston Globe?
I think so. Yes.
He knew what they were.
Yeah, okay. I think that was in the script for 2-5. So he knew what they were because they had talked about the letters.
Okay.
So yeah.
Pretty awesome though to take those out on his own and give somebody else full credit. My other notes were the times that June sees Hannah. So it's interesting that she finally, after begging all season, gets to see Hannah in this episode, but it's also just like completely heartbreaking, as it is every time she sees Hannah in the show. I don't know, like a part of me thinks maybe that it was good for her to be able to see Hannah here, even though it's the most like awful scene ever and Serena's the most vile person on the planet. I mean, Megan, can you imagine like not seeing your kid for 4 years and then just being able to see that they're like alive and well?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you'd be relieved, but then the torture of not being to get to them. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I would be saying exactly what June was saying. I would probably just be, I don't even know. My hands would be bloodied trying to get out of that car.
Have your kid that close and you can't touch them or talk to them or anything?
But just seeing them, you're right, would be like, oh, she's
very, very small note of, okay, she is like healthy and good. That's great. But overall, obviously, this is the most inhumane Serena act, which fits with her character.
Pure torture.
I think that also contrasts to when she sees her in season 2, which is episode 10. She was obviously a lot more calmer because she was locked in a car. And I've always thought that that scene was filmed beautifully, the way that Elizabeth Moss interacted, with Hannah. I mean, anybody would have just grabbed her and ran away. Obviously, she can't do that because the guardians are there. They're going to kill her. But you haven't seen your daughter. She's right in front of you. You just want to grab her. But she knows that if she grabs her, she's probably going to scare her. Hannah maybe doesn't know what's going on. So I think those two scenes contrast each other.
And Nick drives her in that one too.
Right. And she wouldn't let her drive him drive her.
He drives her, and then he pretty much in season 2, he lets June do whatever. Because like the other guardian told June not to go out to see Hannah. And Nick has a very half-hearted attempt to stop her, and then he's like, go ahead, do it.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop you from.
Which I think makes a difference, because you have this other driver in season 1 who obviously is not going to care what June wants to do, Well,
and that cuts back to how he's never going to tell her what to do. He's always going to give her the final say. He'll suggest it, but he wasn't going to push. He was going to let her do what she wanted.
And it also shows the contrast between Fred and Serena. Serena is smart enough even back then to say, I know that Nick should not drive us here.
Yeah.
To see Hannah because he cares about June too much. And then Fred idiotically is like, Nick, go take June by yourself and go take her to see Hannah.
Well, and then Serena comes back and she's like, what do you think would happen, you idiot? You sent her here with the father of her child to see her daughter? Like, oh, really? Come on.
Which it ties into one of my points from the episode, the scene where Fred asked June, is it mine? She says, of course, you do that so well. He knew she was lying, right? Yeah. He knew the baby wasn't his. And then yet he's still surprised over and over and over again when,
oh my God, it's amazing.
And then all I could think of was 410, and he's like, oh, this is disgusting. And he's stunned. He's absolutely stunned. And I'm like, dude, how full are you of yourself that you knew it was all a lie, but you wouldn't let yourself believe it? Like, that's all that was playing in my head. I
was surprised in this episode, rewatching, I had forgotten that from the outset, like you said, 15 seconds later, she tells him that it's basically Nick's baby. And he still somehow manages to just ignore that fact his whole life.
It's just willful ignorance is all it is. It's just willful ignorance on his part.
It's kind of impressive. I don't think I could do that, but good for you.
No.
I think in 410, why he was disgusted isn't because he was shocked, but I think he just didn't realize that they had continued on their love affair. And so he was shocked because Fred is not capable of love. So he's like, well, gosh, I split you guys up. You haven't seen each other in months. How are you?
Right.
Coming here and making out. You still love each other? Gross. I mean, he was like,
do you think that Fred realized though that they were actually in love, or just that Nick I think he probably knew that Nick cared about her, but I guess I'm not really sure if he really believed that they were in love throughout the series.
He says the line of love is just lust with a good marketing campaign. So maybe he didn't think that was possible. And I just think that him accepting reality is just him accepting that he sucks, or that he's weak, or that he's insecure. That's the reality he's going to be hit with if he accepts all these things that are right in his face.
Right. He couldn't believe it is what happened. That's why it was so fucking sick, or whatever he said.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Love, ew. Because Fred, he's incapable. Doesn't know that emotion.
So in this season 1 finale, he learns that they're having, they've had a sexual relationship, they're having a child. And then in season 2 finale, Joe Fiennes said that the reason that he didn't fight Nick back, maybe he was too shocked that Nick was holding him at gunpoint while June escaped, because he couldn't believe that he genuinely loved June and her child enough to sacrifice his life by holding him at gunpoint, and that's why he promoted him to commander, so he could die on the war front or whatever. But he has regularly been reminded that he's had many very obvious clues that they actually love each other, and he is willfully ignorant, like you said, to an impressive degree.
I just don't think he believes in lasting love. It's love.
Exactly, right. He just thought he fixed it by having him sent to Chicago. Okay, that's done. I fixed that problem.
Love for him is conditional, and for Nick it is unconditional. And I think that is the big difference between them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of the season 4 finale, I saw another parallel. So in the scene where, June tells Nick that she's pregnant, I love when you have Serena and Nick talking to each other. And then, Serena says, right before she says to June to go get her cloak, June is sitting there and she's got so much love on her face and she looks so happy and she's emotional. And then when Serena says, get your cloak, her face just hardens and she gets pissed off. And I immediately thought of the finale when June kisses Nick and says, thank you. And she's looking at him walk away. And I just equate her look with the heart emoji with the heart, or the emoji with the heart eyes. And she's looking at Nick so happy and so in love and so emotional. And then she realizes Fred is there and what she has to do. And then she gets that hard, pissed off look again. Yeah. And I just really love that parallel.
I do too.
I also, there's this scene at the beginning of the episode where Serena is, going back and forth with Fred. And she tells him everybody answers to God, which reminded me of Nick in that scene reading the scripture to Fred. Whatever man sows, so shall he reap. You did this to yourself, Commander. You're answering for what you did. So I like that parallel there too. You're gonna answer,
right?
Yeah, it's coming. At the beginning where she's under the blanket rubbing her stomach, and she has a flashback to Luke. That reminded me so much of the end of 205, after she's had her near-death experience, and she goes under the blanket and she's telling, the baby, I'm going to get you out. We're going to get out of here. It felt so similar. So it almost felt to me like in that moment, she was also already kind of planning that in her head. You're not going to stay here. I'll figure out a way to get you out. They just felt very similar to me. And I like that parallel of her, hiding under the blanket and having the moment of privacy with the baby. Yeah.
Which I think, I like that too, because I think that kind of goes along with, the second she tells Nick she's pregnant, you could see all the wheels turning in his head that he's got to get them out,
Yeah.
And then later in that episode, he's gone. He's not at his apartment when she goes there. Like the same day that she tells him she's pregnant, he's literally gone that night plotting.
The lights are on, the doors are locked. He's clearly gone to talk to Mayday. It was hard for me not to say in spoiler free.
I know.
Really wanted to be like, we know why he's not there.
I know, me too. I was like, bite your tongue.
But yeah, so obviously he's gone to arrange her escape, which is going to happen very soon. And I love that.
And I just can't get over the fact that he, like, the very same day he does that. Like, he didn't waste any time.
Not a second. Yeah.
Nope. Right.
Another thing I noticed during the scene with the commander, the council, that room, I'm pretty sure is the same room where they did the wedding ceremony to Nick.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
If you go back and look, they were like on the sides, there were those like bleachers and I don't know what it's called, just like the way the stage looked behind them. I think it was the same room.
That makes sense.
So I kind of like that they have this like multi-purpose, filming wise, that Gilead has this like multi-purpose room, like mass weddings, council meetings, whatever.
Change the lighting.
Just change the lighting, yeah. But I'm almost positive it was the same room, and I'd never noticed that before.
That was a good catch.
And I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder if it's the same, like, it looks like the same as the season 4 commander, like Chicago.
So that's what I was going to talk about. It is the same one from season 4. And I thought it was really interesting that in this episode, you have Fred and Price sitting in the middle. Showing that they're like the head commanders. And then in season 4, well, then you have like commanders on the sides and like at the end that we don't know who they are, which kind of I think shows where in season 4 we see the commanders and Warren Putnam is sitting in the middle, which in this episode he's the one on trial where Fred's sitting in the middle. And then in season 4 Putnam is sitting in the middle and Fred is in Canada, like literally on trial. But I also think it shows that like Nick is sitting at the very end in season 4, showing that he's not powerful like people seem to think he is.
Not a powerful commander, right?
Adding to that, I also remember that Fred here is trying to save Putnam. He's trying to dismiss it. And when Putnam goes to Canada to talk to Fred, he basically says thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
like
best line.
Sorry, buddy.
That's great.
Yeah, I remember that watching it. I'm like, interesting. Because in that scene, you can see that he's really trying to sweep it under the rug to save his buddy.
Totally.
And then when he tells his wife came to ask for the maximum punishment, that's when he's like, fuck. And that's why he goes apologizes to Serena to manipulate her to hey baby, we're going to be a family and everything's going to be fine. And she, basically, that's basically why he does it. He's manipulating her, and even though I think Serena's stronger than Fred. I've always thought about that. That's like that, but she still gets manipulated by him. Serves her right.
Yeah,
she wants it. It's a miserable house. So I really like that. It's a really good parallel that Warren gives a shit about him. It's such a good scene, like Fred's look that he gives him when
he's so shocked.
When he says thoughts and prayers. I mean, it's the best. Like, it was in the promo, and I was just like, is that out of context? Because that is the best shocked look I've ever seen. Appalled.
It's such a Fred look. He's always like, what? He's always shocked.
He's always surprised.
It's just his look. He can't believe anything that actually happened.
I like in this one that obviously, as I said, the Luke and Moira reunion makes me cry every time because she's so shocked that he would have put her, because she says, I have nobody. Her whole episode, she has nobody. and it's just her all alone starting over. And then Luke shows up and she's like, how are you here? And he's like, well, you're on my list, my family. And she's so, I love like her sobbing and clinging to him is just very moving to me. But
it's very emotional.
And it's also the beginning of you know, a good relationship between them. They form a they become family throughout the show more than,
and they raise June's daughter as a family.
Yes, they do. They do, but it's just interesting because in pre-Gilead, when we see them, they're kind of at odds. June's the middleman and they don't click. And then when June's removed, they manage to become family really well without her, which is going to, you know, be helpful in the future because they're raising her daughter and maybe she's not going to be there much longer. And you can see it like throughout season 4 at the grocery store when that's a great scene, I think, in the aisle when they're, you know, they need to change the diaper and they don't have diapers and they toss the diapers from the grocery store and rip them open. And it's just like, it's so fluid. And she's just like watching them.
And she's like, love you.
Yeah. And she says, love you.
They're very clearly like a unit at that point. Yeah.
Even in the hotel, she says, love you before she leaves. It almost seemed like it was to Luke. I'm sure it was to both of them, but they're super close now. And I like that starts in this episode.
Yeah. Speaking of her arriving at the hotel, I did think it was really striking how different Moira arriving in Canada was to June arriving in Canada.
Yeah.
Like, you know, she had the time, she was in the center, she was processing, get all the information. And when June comes, they wheel her off the boat to a hotel and they want intel, which I understand given, you know, we know what June did.
Right.
But I just thought it was really striking how different their experiences were arriving in Canada.
Very. And it was just they were both feeling just as shell-shocked though, and uncomfortable with the circumstances.
But you know what was very similar that I noticed? I was like shocked by this because when I watched, I haven't seen this episode in a while, episode 10. So when Moira is running through that snowy field and she's at a farm and goes to get she finds the car. I thought it was such a parallel to the first episode of season 4. Because June and the Handmaids, when they're escaping, they're also going through the snow and they end up at a farm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's
right. Is it the same farm?
Yeah. I don't know if it was the same farm.
But that is interesting. Yeah. Martha's, who wanted to intro the Martha?
I think that's probably the biggest parallel or thing in this episode that I think really set up going forward is it was so hard not to say this all through spoiler free, the rebel handmaid commander.
Yeah.
That foundation, I have that phrase in my notes at least 3 times. This was really, I think, the beginning of that for June in so many ways. You know, and Nick nailed it when he called her that at the Globe. Rebel handmaid commander. Yes. Yeah. So this was, I think, really the beginning of that. And, you know, all the things coming up, you know, what she did in this episode, the Angel's flight.
Well, so she was very much so the commander in the finale here for season 1. Yeah, like they made it clear. And like, I thought it was interesting because like at the salvaging, Offglen was the first one to speak up, which by the way, I thought it was interesting that she spoke up and then the Guardian hit her in the mouth. And then later on, she gets her tongue cut out. Like foreshadowing. But June ends up becoming like the commander. And then the handmaid who steps in after her is Alma, who was kind of like June's. It almost seemed like she was June's like right hand gal, you know. But I love that like the whole army theme. Like they shouldn't have given us uniforms if it didn't want us to be an army. And then you end the episode with June like leading them because there you go, she's the rebel handmaid commander.
Yeah,
and they're like that throughout the entire series through season 4. You know, they're very careful not to leave anyone behind when June's in the woods and they're carrying her out. I don't know. They're just a very solid troop. I love them.
She's the leader at the farm. It's very clear. She's the one calling the shots.
They've always looked up to her. I've seen it like since we did this whole rewatch for season 1. Like they've always looked up to her. Something that just came to my mind is obviously she tells Rita to look behind the tub for the letters, circling back to the letters. And obviously we see the letters again in season 2. So Rita saved the letters. She could have thrown them away too.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's handwritten. She's not supposed to have them. They keep being a risk, even if, you know, people don't understand the importance of letters, which are really, really important. But Rita also, you know, and then eventually we know that Rita has also ties to the Martha resistance. I mean, obviously we've seen that the Martha resistance is a lot more organized than maybe even the Handmaid. Like, I don't think the Handmaids have a resistance up till now, but the Marthas are a little bit more organized.
Yeah, and Fred says in this episode that they arrested 3 Marthas planning something. Don't these people ever give up? When we know this is just the beginning of the Martha network.
Right. The Marthas have more flexibility to move around too. The Handmaids don't have any. So it makes sense that it would be the Marthas. I wonder if like Econo people will, you know, come into play. We do see that with like the butcher and other people.
Omar.
With Omar. Yeah. So, but we generally just hear the Marthas. But I mean, it's the Econo people. It's the Marthas. It's really everybody.
Yeah.
Who's Mayday. You know, anybody who wants to be a helper.
And the Marthas are the ones who get June. Well, they're the main ones who get June out and Emily at the end of season 2. And then at the end of season 3, you have the whole Angel's Flight thing, which was, I mean, the Marthas had the muffins and what was it? The muffins and scones. And then like you have June meeting with the leaders of the Marthas to get permission to lead the Angel's Flight. And then the Marthas were key in the Angel's Flight to bringing the children to Lawrence's house to get them out. So
yeah, I'm fascinated to see more about Rita because obviously the season 2 escape was Rita.
Yeah, she saw them and decided.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She saw them in the nursery and decided, I need to get them out. This family, they deserve to be out, or at least June and Nicole.
And we didn't know that she had that power, right? She's hidden it really well. Mm-hmm. I think we haven't seen her.
No, she's mysterious. They don't show you much.
Well, I'm also curious, though, if maybe Rita wasn't really involved until later in season 2, because in season 1, I mean, she could have been acting, but she seemed like scared of breaking the rules, you know? And I think season 2, I'm guessing her seeing June be pregnant and then everything that ends up happening in season 2, maybe that kind of wears on her and makes her become a bigger part of the network. So I guess that's what I'd be interested to know of.
Yeah.
Was she always involved or was it kind of a slow progression, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Rita flashback, season 5. Bring it on. Yeah. Let us see.
Please. I like that scene in season 3, I think. I don't remember the details around it, but they're at the market and they're like talking to each other over fruit. And I think I think Rita is just like so proud of June and like who she's become in this season.
But back to the whole Rebel Handmaid Commander thing. I think another thing that's, you know, the parallel too is, again, I know we always go back to the season 4 finale, but June is the commander in that finale. I mean, she wears the black coat. She goes and meets with Fred. Yeah. She goes and meets with Fred and they're like on the same level there. And then, you know, at the very end when they're in the woods, she's in the black coat and she's commanding and she's got her army of handmaids.
Right? Yeah. Just like here, except they're killing a commander. Yeah, no, it's great the way everything ties into the season 4 finale.
Yeah. the parallels in this show, just like, it's my favorite thing. There's so many and they're so good.
We love the Rebel Handmaid Army, obviously. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's what it's about. And it's just every time we see it. And this is the first big one.
I have something small from the scene where June tells Nick that she's pregnant. I think we talked about it in the spoiler free, you know, that he kneels down, and I think Ginger mentioned, you know, that she's always standing in Gilead, and you know, here's this man kneeling down, but they're not at the same level. She's still a little higher up, so I think that shows that, you know, he thinks so highly of her. Like basically, he's just kneeling, worshiping her now because she's going to be the mother of her child.
Yeah.
I think what also struck me too about that scene is that, like I mentioned in the spoiler-free episode, that, you know, June always pushes her feelings down because having hope is a scary thing in Gilead. And Nick, he's always been like the only person who can actually like bring her feelings out and give her hope. Because I think of in season 2 when he sees her after the bleeding incident, you know, where they're standing by the fireplace and he talks about like, he talks about like, I think about us, and she's like, don't, she doesn't want to hear it. And then he gets her because she's like, oh, well, I think about it too, you know? And then he does that again in episode 11 in season 2 when they're in the kitchen after the baby and talking about naming her. So like, I just love that he always has that effect on her.
And that little dining room is like where they have a lot
of
their
place.
Their place, man. That's their place in the house. Anytime they're in that room, I'm like, we're in for something good. Like,
and the light is always very natural and bright in all of those scenes.
I bet that's why they use that room. Yeah.
And in season 4 too, the light when they're together is also, you know, pretty much the same. I think she's like, the way that she expresses her emotions with Nick is just simply because she feels safe with him. I mean, you're not going to be that vulnerable with anybody, especially a guardian and an eye, if you don't feel totally safe. And that's been throughout all 4 seasons.
Yeah. And then like, I love how, you know, at the end of episode 10 here, when Nick comes into the room to tell her that the eyes are coming, like he puts his hand on her belly. And I love it, but it makes me sad because it's the only time we see him.
The only other time it happens.
But I love that he says, trust me. And it's those words, like for their relationship, it's just so, it's so them, because throughout the entire series, they just trust each other without any question, you know,
especially like season 4 ep 3 or the end of episode 2. I mean, when he's capturing her, when he's just puts his hand on her shoulder and he says, I'm trying to keep you alive, and he touches her just to like connect them, and she trusts him. She takes her hand off the gun.
It's just that easy. Yeah, it's like there's no question between them, you know.
The connection between them is unreal.
It is. And then like I also was thinking about the fact that at the end of episode 10 here, Nick is helping June, which again ties into the finale of season 4 where Nick is helping June. So there's like a theme going on here.
Yeah, there is a theme.
Nick helping June.
There's a very clear theme, very clear. People don't get, but it's clear.
To us, at least, it's clear. Not to everyone.
So I like the part where Serena tells June, don't get upset. It's not good for the baby. And then June throws that back in her face in season 2. It was one of the doctor's appointments episodes. I forget which one.
It's the very first one in the first episode.
Yeah, she's very smug, and she's like, she says to Serena, don't get upset. It's not good for the baby. I love it. Love it.
When I went to Paley Fest before season 2, they played that clip, and when they did and June said that, everybody in like the whole Dolby Theater started applauding. It was amazing. Everybody was like, yeah, tell her. Yeah, it was great.
I love moments like that.
There's also the "Do you understand me" line, which, you know, Serena says to her when she locks her up in episode 4, I believe it is, and then she tells it to Fred, "Do you understand me?" And then obviously we have that amazing showdown, you know, when June goes visit Serena in Canada with the "Do you understand me?" And there's also I think Fred tells her, "Go to your room," in that scene in the office.
Yeah, he did earlier. Yes.
He tells her, he was really misogynistic in this episode, but okay, I don't want to talk about that. But he does say, go to your room. And it has a completely different effect from "go to your room before I report you," which again, I feel the need to clarify was a joke between Nick and June.
The script even said that was a joke. But yeah, so they're so good at that. So many regular recurring lines in this show, and I'm curious how they keep track of it all, but they do a great job.
Did somebody in one of the episodes talk about, you know, when June comes down touching the handrail? Because in this episode, she comes down again before she tells Nick that she's pregnant, and she's touching the handrail again.
Yeah, I mentioned that in episode 6 discussion. Like, because there was the parallel of June walking down the stairs holding the handrail and Serena doing that. So I had discussed that, but I don't think I discussed this episode.
Gotcha.
Recurring themes everywhere. Do you guys have any other, like, I don't know, season 1 wrap thoughts? I guess I didn't quite realize that we were wrapping a whole season today.
I mean, the only thing that I have, and I don't know how to develop it, is, you know, when you see Lydia, you see her being extremely cruel and obviously vary by the rules, but you still see the vulnerability for the girls, which is like, it's just really hard to explain it, but I think that's the basis of her character.
Well, I mean, she definitely was emotional. I mean, she loves Janine, and you can even tell that in episode 9 and 10 here in season 1. And you know, she's emotional when she's telling the handmaids about before they bring Janine out. And then she's upset, like when the guardians are gonna, you know, they're trying to attack these handmaids to keep them from getting out of line. So she's being protective of them, which is just, it's how she always has been. It's how she is in season 2, because she does end up protecting June during her pregnancy, while at the same time, you know, abusing her, like emotionally and I think physically, I don't remember.
She abuses her, but she also uses that to kind of separate her from the other handmaids, because she knows that June is seen as a leader. So by hurting all the other handmaids and keeping her like the pretty handmaid, the other ones are going to be like, oh, this is great. They're not going to want to follow her. That's just a tactic to kind of break the group.
That's the smartest thing that she could do. And it's also like horribly cruel, but yeah, good point. Well, and we see Aunt Lydia care earlier in the season 2 with Janine at the Mexican ambassador dinner when Janine's really excited to go and Serena says to take the bad apples out. And I think that she looked like she seemed really sad to have to remove Janine from something that was going to make her really happy.
Well, even on the bridge scene, you see that when Janine's like, nobody would want to dance with me. And you can see Lydia being like, gosh.
Oh, I shouldn't have taken your eye out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that to you.
She gave her a patch.
That's true.
I mean, and I think also in season 4, we see that, I mean, season 4, obviously it's a little bit more different because she was losing control. So she was a little like not as
erratic.
Exactly. But if you compare it to the other seasons, you see that even with Janine, you know, she had like a softer spot for her. It's just very weird how she is able to humanize them because they have a sacred duty, while dehumanizing them. Because in order for you to do this to these women, you have to completely dehumanize them.
Yeah.
And she's gotten to know them and she's formed a relationship with them. Like initially in the beginning, when we see them, they're all new. They haven't formed any attachments. They're not bonded. Well, now it's years into this, they're bonded, and you can see how it's like just kind of destroying her from the inside, hurting these girls. She has to. That is her job. That is expected of her. If she doesn't do that, you know, somebody else will, or she'll be put on the wall. But you can see it now throughout the seasons that she is really affected by how she has treated these girls and how she has broken them. It wears on her.
What I do want to say, though, is to wrap up, you know, this is the end of the season. I do think this is, honest to God, one of the best seasons of television, season 1 is, that I've ever seen. And that's not to say the later seasons aren't great, but just season 1 overall, the arc, the acting, the storytelling, the cinematography, the soundtrack, the music, the makeup, all of it is, the whole package is one of, if not the best season of TV I've ever seen. And I watch a lot of TV.
Me too.
And just this season just blew me away in how incredible it is. So
I agree.
Many kudos to the cast and crew. Everyone brought their A game, and you can tell it's amazing.
It crushed it.
It's amazing. It hooked me. 1 and 4.
Yeah, I think it's amazing too that like through doing this podcast, especially, you know, we're all really examining these episodes, and I think we've all seen these seasons many times, and just the fact that you can still pick up so many tiny things.
I know, every time.
Like the attention to detail that they pay in the show is just mind-blowing to me.
And they're writing it on a classic novel, and the author's still alive, and they've delivered so well that like she's happy. The audience, like I was so excited waiting for this season 1 to come out when I reread the book, and like you said, it crushed it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, this is amazing. And now I get to find out what would have happened next, or at least some scenario that would have happened next.
Yeah.
And it's just brilliant. And I love this show so much. And yeah, season 1 was just amazing.
And I think it was the perfect way to end this episode with June's voiceover, which, by the way, I miss those. But, you know, she mentions that she tries to change the world and make things better for Hannah.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a great thing because it really parallels June's journey throughout this entire series. And you know it's going to go on through seasons 5 and 6. And then later on when they do the testaments, like that's what the whole purpose of this show is.
That's what she does now.
And it's such a perfect way to end this season because it just sums it up in a nice little bow. I think that's where season 5 is going to go. I think we're going to see, I mean, June obviously wants to fight. So, and it's it's all for her daughters, you know?
I like how that parallels to her mom. Isn't it in season 2 where she has that line, be raised by a feminist and spend like all your life waiting for men to rescue you or something like that?
Yeah, season 2 when she's waiting for the airplane.
For the airplane, yeah. I mean, it's impressive how in the flashbacks with her mom, you see that, you know, that little maybe tension that they have there for her to only understand now in this fucked up world why her mom did what she did, and she's going to end up doing almost basically the same thing that her mom did for her daughters.
It's amazing story writing, show writing, everything. And what I wouldn't give for her to be able to see Holly, her mom Holly.
Me too.
Possibly still be alive. Can you imagine how proud she'd be of June?
So proud.
So good.
All right, well, this has been an amazing season, you guys. Yay for us. We did it. Kind of exciting. Okay, that's a wrap on our deep dive into season 1, episode 10, which is also a wrap on our entire season 1. Thank you guys for listening. We have had a really great time. We're going to take a break for a week in between our season. So we'll be back on March 14th with our spoiler-free analysis of season 2, episode 1. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
You know, I think about us, the 3 of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's her day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.